We'll start out by taking a look at the General Ledger module. We will go into the Financials menu, under Setup, Account Group Policies. You can start by seeing there are some flexible options in terms of defining your company, account, and subsequent sub-account breakouts. You can define the full field name captions. You can define abbreviated captions, how large the fields are, and whether you want to allow letters or stick with numbers. You can also optionally decide whether you really need a full 5-segment breakout, and you can turn off segments that you might not use. Once this is defined, you can see the actual chart of accounts by opening the Account Group Definition screen. And here you can see all of the accounts and sub-accounts that are set up within the system. You can edit them, you can add new ones, and you can even categorize them as current assets, non-current assets, or whatever makes sense for your business. You can, of course, do journal entries. In the journal entry screen, this screen does have quite a bit of functionality. You can create an auto-reversing journal batch just by checking the checkbox. This will allow the entry to automatically reverse next period. You can set up recurring entries. If you need to make the same sort of entry month after month or however often, you can configure that here. It does allow for the same amount. If the entry is for the same amount every time, it's fixed. If you need to change the amounts every time, you can set it that way. As far as how often, you can do it every month, every period, every quarter, every number of days. You can configure when it should start, when it should end, or how many times it should generate, and it tracks a history of all the recurring entries. If it's just a one-time entry, we can add some detail lines here. We can select our account and optionally any sort of sub-account breakout. We can make our entry. Save. Another nice feature is along the way, you'll see along the right, you get running totals. You get a running debit total, running credit total, and the difference. This hopefully helps you keep track of where you're at in the batch, make sure everything is nice and balanced. If you happen to pick an account that is project related, you can enter the project information directly in this screen as well. You can select your project task and optionally any resource or labor information if it happens to be labor related. Once you're done and everything's balanced out, you can of course save and release and post it. Assuming you have access rights to do so, you can post it directly from within this screen. No need to run an additional process after that fact. There's also some flexible budgeting options within Beyond. We go to the budget and statistical entry. You can configure an unlimited number of budgets and budget versions. You can set up budget ledgers or statistical ledgers. Again, there's no limit or naming limit for that. I'll set up a new one. And now you can manually add your accounts and budget by the period for this year, or you can use import-export to Excel, which is quite nice. I'll select import-export. I will first choose to create a template. I'll save my template to the desktop. And when creating this template, I can choose whether or not I want to budget at the department level or not. I'm going to choose not to. You can also choose what accounts you plan on budgeting for, whether you want to do all of your accounts or maybe you only want to budget your revenue and expenses. I'll select Begin Processing. And this will create a template for us. So I'll say OK. Let's take a look at what that looks like. My budget import template file on the desktop, I'll open that in Excel. And you can see the template that it created for us is very user-friendly here. It's listed out all of our accounts, the account description, and added columns for all the periods, so that now we can easily type in or paste in our budgets directly in Excel. Once we're happy with the budget, We can save it and close out. Now back and beyond, we can now import that file. Import, select our file, and begin. Once it's imported, we can see our budget has been imported, all of our accounts are there, and our numbers are there. Quick and easy and user-friendly. No need to decrypt some cryptic import process or deal with CSV files or other borderline developer type code. It's really simple. Export the template, nice user-friendly interface, enter in your budget, and then re-import it in. Next up, if we go to Generate Allocation Journals, from here you can generate your allocations based on your allocation methods that you have set up. And in this Generate screen, it is kind of nice. It gives you a summary of what allocations you have set up, whether they're dynamic or fixed percent, how often you should run them, monthly or quarterly or whatever. It even gives you a summary of what kind of money is sitting in your source account to give you an idea of what's about to be allocated if you were to run this. From within here, if you wanted to see more details about what you're going to run, you can directly jump to the allocation method setup just by clicking these nice little links here. So if we wanted to see what the allocate taxes method was doing, it'll take us straight here, and I can see it's a dynamic percent, allocating quarterly. Here's my source account, and here's my destination. My destination is set up to allocate based on basis accounts, and I actually have it configured to pull the basis account balances out of a statistical ledger. We could look at the other one. If I click on allocate rent, it'll pull that one up. And in this one, it's just a fixed percent. Again, I'm taking rent expense and divvying it out by a set percentage to various other accounts. Once you have some transactions in the system, the next obvious step is you want to see what that looks like through some reporting options. If we go to the General Ledger Transaction Console, this is a great starting point for any sort of reporting that you might do. At its most basic level, it's going to list out every transaction posted in the system. So this can be, if you needed to track down a very specific transaction, you can find it in here. But you can get much more creative and useful with this. Say you wanted a more trial balance look and feel to this. We can take the period to post and drag it up to the top, and now everything's grouped by period. Then we can take the account and drag it up there and subgroup it by the account code. Now we have a nice summary of our total transactions by period, and it gives us summary totals. And if we expand on this, now we can see a breakdown by account, the total for each of our accounts. And if we expand on that, we can see the details about every transaction that makes up that balance. And if we wanted to actually see the source, so if I wanted to drill more into where did this negative $200 come from, there's a hyperlink here. I can jump straight to the source transaction and see exactly what it looks like. So very flexible and interactive using this GL Transaction Console to do what you want. If you like the arrangement, you can of course save this view. Say if I only wanted to see things from my HA1001 project, I can filter on that just by typing HA1001 and then filter. And now I only see transactions for that particular project. You can filter on any of these columns. You can add additional columns, rearrange it, do whatever it is you need to do. If you needed to export this to Excel, you can also do that as well. We'll take a look at consoles in more detail later, but this gives you a brief idea of just some of the things that are possible in terms of GL reporting just within this console. There are of course other options. There are a number of reports available. So if you wanted to run a GL trial balance report, you can run it from our reports menu. And you are presented with quite a number of filtering and grouping options that you can do. You can filter down by the account. You can choose to show totals or not. You can provide detail or summary mode. You can pick what period you want to run this for. You can even filter on what kind of transactions you want to see. Lots of flexible options here. And once it's generated, you're presented with a report. These are all SQL Server Reporting Services reports. And from here you can do with them whatever you need. If you need to print it to a printer, you can print it. If you need to export it to a file, you can do so as well. There's quite a number of formats you can export, of course, PDF, Excel, Word, etc. You can even add this to a favorites. If this is a report you're going to be running on a recurring basis, you can add it to your favorites menu, or you can change the reporting options. So you want to change what period, or switch to summary or something like that. Again, we'll take a look at reporting a little bit later in the video, but this is just a brief look at the GL reporting. Finally, there are some financial reporting options. Say if you wanted to generate a balance sheet or income statement, you go to Setup and Financial Reporting rows. I'll select one of my existing reports, my income statement, and here there's quite a bit of flexibility in configuring your financial reporting, all built right into Beyond, to be able to display what accounts you want, what labels, what level of detail. You can add groupings, change groupings, add total lines, and really build out the look and feel of how you want your report to look. Once this is all defined, you can run this report by selecting Financial Reports, and I will run my income statement. There's quite a number of options in terms of what level of detail you want to see on this. And I will run my report. And it displays it. So using my setup and my column headers and the accounts that I picked for each section, and then the level of detail of current period versus YTD, actual budget and variance, it's displaying to me all the information that I need to know. Finally, period closing and year closing. You can choose to leave periods open, or you can close them out to help restrict entry to prior periods. And once it's closed, then only users who have special access rights to do so, can post to those prior closed periods.